For 40 years he was silent about how the incredible story happened to him. Having fulfilled his promise, he spoke, and his first words were, "I lived on a secret alien base in the Himalayas for exactly 1 year." And it's worth starting with Colin Andrews, one of the most famous researchers of UFOs and such an inexplicable phenomenon as crop circles. He has been involved in these matters since 1984. He did not have any certificates or contacts with the chief doctors, but during all this time he wrote many books, articles, and acquired in narrow circles the authority of a person completely devoted to his work. And not so long ago, a story of a Frenchman was published on his official website, which left people with an extremely controversial aftertaste. It all started in the south of France on an unremarkable farm in which Roberto Leroux lived with his parents and grandmother. For a month, while reading a book before going to bed, Roberto watched through his window large luminous balls moving chaotically across the field. Let me remind you that this happened in France. They grew grapes on the farm, and a couple of times at family dinner, Roberto tried to share his observations. But the family was extremely skeptical of his stories and advised him to read less books and plow more in the field. And don't talk like that to strangers, otherwise it will all end in a mental hospital. The young Frenchman did not like such prospects, and he did not talk about this topic with anyone else. By the way, the evening light shows continued for the second month. Until one day Roberto noticed that the behavior of the balls had changed a little. They began to go out and light up, and their chaotic movements acquired synchronicity. And then a merger occurred and a giant shining bullet-shaped figure appeared in the middle of the grape field. Roberto immediately felt extremely tired and wanted to lie down on the bed. Which he immediately did. His body felt paralyzed and all he could do was roll his eyes and control his eyelids. This is how Roberto described his first meeting with them. They came through the wall and surrounded my bed. Their height was high. They themselves were fair and had thin long arms. The clothes resembled tight overalls that were open at the neck and wrists. You know, with a metallic tint and a wide belt. They introduced themselves as scientists from another galaxy, took a sample of my blood and said that they were interested in my genetic structure. Over the next 2 years, such meetings continued with increasing frequency. Roberto was being prepared for an important mission, which you will learn about a little later. He was even given a mentor, so to speak, who talked with him a lot and even taught him similar yoga training. The mentor called himself a guide and had the name Roro. He was part of a galactic confederation responsible for maintaining life on planets inhabited by intelligent beings. When Roberto's 2-year training was completed, he was gently offered to move from the farm to their secret underground base located in the Himalayas. He was assured that he would be constantly taken care of and that he would not need for anything. It was getting dark, and at the appointed hour, a cigar-shaped 20-meter ship, the color of red-hot iron, descended onto the vineyard. The guide greeted Roberto from the opening that opened. This is how he recalled those events. Roro invited me inside. Sensing my excitement and sadness at being separated from my family, the teacher put his 3-fingered hand on my shoulder and smiled slightly. This gave me confidence. Then the walls of the ship seemed to dissolve. I saw the lights of a big city. I think, as you were Marseille, the city quickly began to move away. We moved at some incredible speed and in complete silence. Roberto believes that they rose to a height of about 50 kilometers. And their journey lasted less than an hour. And it ended at an underground alien base, somewhere under the Himalayan mountains. The guy was placed in a room with rounded walls. He felt tired, so he fell asleep very quickly. In the morning he was served breakfast, which turned out to be prepared by his mother. And they gave me a soft, tight-fitting blue suit. At night, Roberto did not pay attention to the device resembling an eye, which extremely naturalistically broadcast everything that was happening in his company. He saw and heard every member of his family. There was nothing wrong with them. They didn't even seem to notice their son was missing. 2 aliens, most likely female, entered the young man's apartment. They introduced themselves as a biologist and ethnologist. Roberto was given a tour of the base, which was actually a huge cave located at a depth of about 1 kilometer underground. The base was surrounded by a double magnetic belt that insulated and protected it from earthquakes. There were many rooms inside the complex. The elevator doors opened onto an open-air platform, where Roberta sometimes went in the evenings, but only accompanied. The terrain was rugged with high snow-capped mountains. The spacecraft flew into the base through a winding tunnel with a funnel-shaped entrance. Located lower in the valley, the tunnel ended in huge hangars where the personnel ships were located. He was allowed to enter premises inside the base, with the exception of certain areas. But as we understand, the forbidden fruit is sweet, and one day our hero tried to penetrate such a place. But some invisible wall each time pushed him out of the forbidden room into the corridor. Roberto still doesn't know what was inside, and to all the guide's questions he only received the answer that he shouldn't know. I think it's time you found out for what purpose the aliens chose Roberto. The fact is that, according to aliens, the guy's genetic material was ideal for use in settling a distant planet. In fact, Roberto was the male donor of the family. He was well taken care of by a biologist who explained to him in a pleasant manner that he needed to be a donor regularly, namely every 2 days. Life on base was interesting. Roberto learned a lot from his conversations with the guide and ethnologist. They gave him a lot of advice for maintaining physical and mental health. He received regular yoga instruction. But despite their benevolence, policy of non-interference in the affairs of humanity and respect for free will, they hinted that in the event of a nuclear conflict they would certainly intervene. In general, there was an atmosphere of peace and harmony at the base. Order and discipline seemed to be such and such a motto. They said that aliens appeared here 20,000 years before our civilization. They also explained to him how the universe works. And one day a biologist invited him to observe a meeting of the Galactic Federation. She asked him to remain completely calm and just watch. There was a large oval table in the room, as one by one guests of various races began to materialize around this table. It was reminiscent of teleportation or a very high-quality hologram. The creatures discussed the planets, the movement of ships between them and other galactic matters. One day Roberto asked the guide to explain the principle by which aliens travel such long distances. He agreed with pleasure and explained, but Roberto did not understand anything. Ruro also said that members of their race can live in one body for 400 to 500 years. Then you just need to replace the body, which is essentially a container for the soul. Death does not exist, the evolution of the soul is eternal. According to Roberto, his time at the base passed very quickly and the moment came to return to the farm. The guy wanted to stay, but the guide didn't allow him and ordered him to keep everything secret for 40 years. And he added that when most of your planet is ready, perhaps then we will see each other again. This amazing and incredible story has come to an end. And we can only believe that all these are not notes from psychiatric ward number 6. And somewhere in distant space there really is a planet inhabited by the descendants of a 20-year-old French boy named Roberto Leroux. Write what you think about what you heard. Thank you all for your attention and bye.